correspondent Peter Standring reports, predicting a hurricane's power may now get a little easier.
And, this can extend up to 25 feet, and it shows us just how deep the water would be here if Ivan came through.
Getting pretty high.
We're still getting high. Notice we're probably at about the second level, right? There we go. Now watch. We're getting close. We're there.
What are we at?
22 feet is what they tell us could be right here in the French Quarter.
You're saying that this street, French Quarter, under 22 feet of water.
If Ivan made that direct hit, this is what we'd be looking at. We're swimming here. We're like fish. If we're alive.
Not good.
Not good.
Just 50 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, New Orleans is at such great risk because most of the city lies below sea level. Settled in 1718, it's sandwiched between the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain.
New Orleans was built on a swamp, and in order to build it, they had to put a wall, a levee, around the swamp, and then pump all the water out. As you pump the water out, you allow oxygen to then get into the soils. The oxygen breaks down the organic matter in the soils, and they ooze, bulk, and they sink.
To keep the river and lake from flooding this ever-deepening bowl, which is more than 12 feet below sea level in some places, hundreds of miles of giant levees, like this one, now surround New Orleans from floods, could be its demise. Hurricanes are whirling dynamos generating enormous winds. These winds create a gigantic swell of water called a storm surge. And in New Orleans, a storm surge could deliver a fatal 1-2 punch. Approaching from the Gulf of Mexico, the storm surge would push water into Lake Pontchartrain and up the Mississippi River. As the water level rises, it would overflow the levees on the lake, inundating the city from the north. Some people think a stronger have no way necessarily to get the water out of here. In essence, Lake Pontchartrain, which surrounds us, is transferred and becomes back. The hurricane has improved dramatically, but predicting its intensity and how strong it will be when it hits land is still a difficult challenge.
Just grab your glasses there, I'll give you a test drive.
We're going to dive on into the storm.
We're going to fly into the storm.
NASA is using satellites to understand hurricanes both inside and out.
20, 30 years ago, when we used the conventional view of a storm, we could really only see the cloud top. We could see how big the storm was. We could see the white mass, which represented the clouds, and that was valuable. But that's all we could see. We were just sort of touching the hood of the car. Now we can pop the hood and look inside the storm.
To do that, they're using a satellite equipped with weather radar, the only one of its kind. Much the way a CAT scan provides a three-dimensional picture of internal organs, the satellite's radar is producing stunning pictures of a hurricane's internal structure. And these unique images reveal something unexpected. Extremely violent thunderstorms called hot towers, seen here in red. These storms within a storm can reach more than 10 miles into the sky.
When we see these hot towers, we think that they are giving us a clue that the storm is releasing a lot of energy. It's firing on all cylinders, if you will, and maybe a sign that the storm is about to undergo intensification processes.
So you do think, preliminarily, that there's a link between the abundance of hot towers and how strong and intense a storm is going to be?
That's exactly where we are in the research. We don't have enough evidence to conclusively link the number of hot towers or how tall they are to intensity. But our hypothesis is that they might be a sign or a clue that the hurricane is about to enter an intensification phase.
And if this work pays off, forecasters will be able to predict more accurately not just where a storm will hit, but whether it will weaken or intensify just before landfall.
Where the rest of us have AAs and CCs and TTs and GGs, he has, I haven't seen this, but I'm sure it's true, he has ENGINEER. With him, it's genetic, as you're about to see. James McClurkin does not waste time, just ask his girlfriend, Dara.
James said to me when we went out to dinner the first time, I'm a geek.
It's very important to remember that I am a geek, that I build robots, and I like it. I've got pet ants. I play video games.
At only 20, he built what was then one of the world's smallest self-contained autonomous robots. Later, he won the $30,000 Lemelson MIT Prize for Remarkable Inventiveness. His work's been exhibited at the Smithsonian, and that's just for starters.
Time.
Yeah, you got it. He is an engineer. He loves planning and systems analysis, so he has analyzed and planned every minute of his life.
Time is the resource that is more precious than any other resource I've got.
But like all collectors, sand fanciers have stories they tell. This one's a mystery, and it's an ancient mystery. For a long, long time, people have noticed that in certain places and under certain conditions, sand sings. Well, sings isn't quite right. There are beaches. Can I get a beach? Thanks. All over the world, where if you walk along, the sand underfoot, you hear this? Like a frog, it croaks. It's a very distinctive sound. And no one's quite sure what produces the sound, but far more mysterious and even rarer, there are only about 30 places on Earth where this can happen, sand will, well, you'll see. Here's our correspondent, Chad Cohen.
Listen. You hear that sound? You might think it's the wind, but it's not. It sounds like a sustained musical note coming from the sand dunes themselves. This is the sound that has mystified generations. Marco Polo noticed it in the Gobi Desert. Ancient travelers have heard it in the Sahara. Even Charles Darwin puzzled over it in the Chilean desert. So far, no one has been able to explain what it is or why it happens. That's why Caltech engineers Melanie Hunt and Christopher Brennan are here at the Dumont Dunes in Death Valley, California. Surface are like the vibrating strings on a cello. And underneath the surface, you'll find a damper, harder layer of sand, which reflects and magnifies the vibrations, just like the body of a cello does.
Better get your goggles on.
Wait a minute, don't go too fast.
But on this, their first run of the day, the dunes are silent.
Too bad. Hardly moves at all.
What could have gone wrong?
Today the wind is not blowing in the normal direction. Usually the wind blows from that direction over this way, leaving a lot of loose sand on this side of the dune.
That missing loose sand has an unusual characteristic. The sand grains are almost all the same size, so that they resonate together.
And we use this a bow rubbing over a string has a characteristic frequency.
50 feet down the dune, they find what they think they've been looking for. A patch of loose sand that looks promising. It determines the musical range, they think, is not just the size of the sand particles, but also how much space there is between the top where the sand is loose and that hard surface down below.
Another 4 inches, 3 inches.
The greater the distance between the two, the lower the frequency and pitch of the booming dune.
Got a good consistency to it, hasn't it?
So, documented that the sound of the booming dunes actually changes from day to day. It's called a geophone, is buried just below the surface. Later, back at Caltech, this data gets fed into a computer. Over the last 2 the lower the frequency and pitch of the booming dune.
Got a good consistency to it, hasn't it?
Must be at least dry sand of similar particle size at the top and a hard layer below, and the sounds recorded fall into the musical range of either an E, an F, or a G. So, is the mystery solved? Well, not quite yet. There is much more documentation to be done, more readings needed to confirm their theories. But this resourceful team of scientists is hopeful that one day they will be able to prove their premise, and when they do, they can proudly claim that they accomplished it by the seat of their pants.
Correspondent Chad Cohen. Exquisite sculptures. Ganson is self-taught. He never took an engineering course, but he was always an artist, fascinated by things in motion. So here is our look at Arthur Ganson, kinetic sculptor.
The scientist and the artist are both passionate about their exploration. What leads to my work is that I'm equally an artist and an engineer. I guess I'm fascinated with motion because I find that whenever anything is moving, I have some feeling about it. And it's also somewhat of a challenge to see how that can be done with materials and objects that really are not emotional in and of themselves. And what kind of machine do I need to make? I happen to love engineering. I love figuring things out in a spatial sense.